Hearing none, we'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. I assume the roll has been called, or do we want to do that? Do you have that, Sarah?
I am all set. Thank you.
Okay, very good. So we'll now go to the Pledge of Allegiance. If you please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, let's do the agenda. I think we need to amend our agenda. We could step in here, and what we want to amend is item number M under new business. We're not going to approve the COVID-19 response reopening plan. We're just going to receive it. So I would entertain a motion to accept the agenda as amended, if we could, please.
So moved.
Motion.
Okay, we have a motion and I believe support. Sarah, did you want to take roll call on that one, please?
Yes, thank you. Audra? Sorry,
Audra or Roger?
I couldn't hear.
Audra. Can we start with you, Audra?
Yes, sorry, I couldn't hear it, so.
And Roger?
Yes.
Roxanne?
Yes.
Didn't hear you. Did you say Nick? Yes.
Mayor?
Oh.
Yes.
Sorry. Larry?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
And Michelle?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so that has been carried. We have an amended agenda then. Oops, okay. See, next up, we'll entertain a motion for the approval of the May 21st regular or budget review session and the May 26th regular meeting. Your pleasure there.
Move approval. Move approval.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Are there any comments or questions, corrections for either of those minutes? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. Sarah, if you would, please.
Thank you. Roger?
Yes.
Roxanne?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
And Audra?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that motion is also carried. Thank you very much. Now we can move down to ordinances. And first up, we have consideration of the introduction of ordinance number 816 to amend the zoning map of the city of Alma as it appears in section 60-52 of the ordinances of the city of Alma. The premises here are described as the west 1/2 block of 1, block 1, block 2, block 3, lying east of the Pine River, block 13, and all adjacent vacated streets and alleys. Original town, city of Alma, Gratiot County, Michigan, aka 615 East Downey Street, currently zoned as R1 single family residential, to be rezoned to L1 light industrial. And those of us, I think everybody's probably very familiar with this. It's the old athletic field from the high school at one time and then the middle school, so which now is owned by the pontoon company. So, your pleasure.
Move to approve. Support.
Got motion and support. Comments, questions, presentation by staff. Matt or Eric, did you want to, David, anybody want to give anything? Background here? Not hearing much. Okay. Anybody have comments or questions for staff?
That's the whole field.
Yeah, I think Eric's mic went out. It's the actual field portion, and then the portion that goes that swings back around, you know, on the backside off of Euclid Fields back there. It's the whole. That's one plot. That whole area is what that is. Most of it's in the
track
portion of it also.
The track also.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
That whole.
The track, and then what you used to know as softball fields, Larry.
Yeah.
It goes clear to the river then.
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
With the exception of the apartments and along the, would it be the
Right.
one side
West
there?
side.
West side, yeah, thank you.
Do we know what they are planning to do with it?
Storage has been
Currently just
the
boat
discussion.
storage.
Yeah, cold storage.
And a good portion of it, I think, is in the floodplain, so
Correct.
highly likely that they would not be building any structures there. But
Right.
obviously the future, we cannot predict.
And part of the planning that they've been going through is berming up that area too, along the side of Downey, that there'll be some berming in there and stuff to take away some of the visual from there too.
Thank you.
Hey, are there any more questions or comments? Larry, did I cut you off?
No,
Oh, okay. Okay. So we have a motion, no more comments, questions. If we would take a vote, Sarah, if you would, please.
Thank you. Roxanne,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
Larry,
yes,
Nick,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Audra,
Yes.
Roger.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Looks like that motion is carried as well. So moving on to number 2, we have consideration of the introduction of ordinance number 817 to amend the zoning map of the city of Alma as it appears in section 60-52 of the ordinances of the city of Alma. This ordinance is to rezone the premises herein described as Lot 1 and Lot 2, except the south 15 feet thereof Block 3, Lancashire's addition, including a strip of 8.25 feet wide adjacent to the north line of said Lot 1, as disclosed by the resolution for vacation of streets, as recorded in Library 314, page 60, City of Alma, Gratiot County, Michigan. As recorded in Library 2 of Plats, page 37, Gratiot County Records, aka 803 West Center, from R1 single-family residential district to R2 two-family residential district, subject to the conditions set forth in the conditional rezoning agreement. You probably are familiar with this as well. This, I believe, is the old middle school site.
No, this is the
No?
3 West Center up on by the
Oh,
college.
this is the, I'm sorry, this is the other one, yes. Yes, I'm sorry. So comments, questions, or anything to address here?
does Alma College own that now?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Eric, we still can't hear you.
I'll translate for you, Eric.
Yeah. So this is the house they're proposing to have, I guess, rental units in?
It'll be similar to like the alumni house and some of the other houses that they own that they'll be able to use for housing for stuff at the college when people are in.
Yeah.
And actually, I think even at the planning commission level, we had one, I correct, Eric, one letter that came in actually of support that, you know, as far as what the college has done with some of the other homes in that area and how they've been utilizing them.
Yeah, you're still muted, Eric, but okay. Does anybody else have comments or questions?
He's
The
not
mic's
muted.
not working.
This isn't working. Move approval.
Okay,
Support.
the motion and support. Sarah, if you'd like to take the roll, please.
Mayor, can we start with you? Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Larry,
Yes,
Nick,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Audra,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
and Roxanne.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that motion is also passed. Thank you, Sarah. Moving on to reports, commissioners may receive the following reports by one resolution, or any commissioner may remove any of the items within the section for individual discussion and vote. Tonight we have the Alma Police Department report for May 2020. We have a Planning Commission minutes of June 1st, 2020, a May 2020 transit report, and the city manager's report for this last period. So your pleasure.
does Matt want to talk?
Yeah, I'd say if I could pull mine.
Okay, and I guess I would like to also pull the police department and the transit report, if we could. So 3 of the 4. We got a motion to approve. I guess what remains would be the planning commission at this point.
Move approval.
Support.
Support.
Okay, motion to support. Sarah.
Liz,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Audra,
Yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Roxanne,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll pull the police department report, and that was at my request. So first up, I wanted to comment, I like the report, I like the data and everything. It's nice to look at it. What I would really like to see, if it's possible, is can we get some trending type reports, add some year-to-date information, year-over-year information, so we can start, we get this information sporadically or monthly, but it's kind of a standalone monthly picture, and it's kind of hard to tell, are things getting better? Are they getting worse? Where are we doing well? Where are we not doing well? Yeah, it'd just be nice to have some kind of a frame of reference rather than just looking 1 month at a time. If we could get some more trend type reports. And this probably comes, I don't know, Kendra does that, or do you do this, Mark? Or maybe Mark isn't really on, I don't know.
He's there.
In the chat, he said yes. The chat bar there. He
Oh,
typed
okay.
yes.
Yeah.
I guess I don't have the chat bar up, so I apologize.
Can you hear me now?
There he is.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm on my cell phone. It's having problems. Yeah, we can do that. We can do comparisons and we kind of do that a lot in the year end, but we'd be happy to do it from month to month if you request that.
I think it'd have more context and be more meaningful for us if we could see some kind of a comparison.
Yeah, the way it states now, I believe it compares it with the previous month, but we can do it longer or for the year if you'd like, from January 1st.
Okay, yeah, I'd appreciate it if you try it, and if nobody else likes it, then maybe we stop it, but
Sure,
just a thought there.
absolutely. We'll take care of it.
Okay, thank you. And then the next one that I also asked her to have removed was the May 2020 transit report. And I was just curious as to, I think going into this year, we kind of had an agreement that this was going to be the last year that we provided services outside the city of Elma with, under the contract terms that we have been operating in the past. And as we're, ending our year, it's what's the plans? I know there's a millage proposed, at least by some of the outlying entities. Is there any kind of idea how are we gonna continue service, or is that the plan, to continue service through the election in November? And at what rate? Have we agreed to anything? I don't believe we brought anything before this commission as far as making an agreement to extend the service beyond this current fiscal year.
The talk had been with them was because initially we were going to do the earlier election period.
Right, we were going to know by now.
And then that did not work out due to some of the things with St. Louis and Ithaca. So it is a November election. And so, and actually, Greg, you're right. I don't think that we've ever brought it back formally to continue. The idea was most likely extended until it happened. We can bring that back to the board, though, as a formal request. It's hard to stop that service prior to, right before going into an election period. So, but we can bring it back.
I don't disagree. I guess I'd just like to have a little conversation about what the contribution is going to be from those other entities as well.
Sure, and we can bring that back to you in the next month. It'll be the same, and we would finish it off until we get that answer in November.
Okay, and just we'll give you an idea of what I was looking at on page 37. We've got all this data about the ridership, and it looks like about 60% of the ridership is originating to or terminating in the city of Elma. And it seems like the contribution is disproportionately coming from City of Elma, way over 60%. So, obviously, if we go the millage route and full contributions come from the townships or other cities that aren't going to participate, it changes things. But I just wonder if it doesn't call for some sort of an increase in the interim for the next 6 months or so as we move towards the election.
If you
And I don't expect an answer today. I guess
if you give us the 2 weeks to compile some of that information.
I just want you to consider that as you go forward and
Sure.
how you're thinking about working out the deal with the townships or cities that are going to be involved here.
Yeah, we'll go through that portion of it then and come up with what those figures would look like for that time period.
Okay, thank you. Then the other thing I had on transportation too, on page 38 of the report, which just struck me as odd, and I'm sure we've seen this before and it just never dawned on me, but it's about the hours worked, vehicle hours, demand response on the top of page 38 of 165. It's got vehicle hours of 463 hours, less excluded breaks of 50.25 hours. Can somebody explain to me, does the vehicles take a break, or are we actually talking driver hours here, or anybody know what that exactly means?
Sure, I can explain that. Essentially what that is the dead time on the vehicle. So it's not necessarily that the vehicle or my people are on a break. Once they drop that person off, essentially that clock start until they pick somebody else up. So it's called dead time. That's the way that we can track that dead time. And of course, right now with COVID and the way that we're running our transit, we're running it essentially like a taxi. So it's as inefficient as we can be right now, but it's also the safest for my drivers and our patrons that are using the service.
Okay, so that's essentially then hours that the bus is on the road that you're not carrying a passenger? Is that a correct assumption?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. I just wondered what that was, so thank you. Okay, that eliminates my questions there. Now let's move to, I think Matt's report was next, unless anybody else has questions on those items that I was talking about. Certainly chime in. Matt, do you want to cover your report, please?
Sure. The area I'll go down to, I can go through it. I mean, we have been offered a dam inspection. David, let me know.
An inspection of the dam, right?
Yes, excuse me. Yeah, that didn't come out right. An inspection of the dam. And obviously with what occurred, I think in Midland, there's some definite push to take a look at things, but we don't have anything that's pressing or anything that showed through that process. So we're going to be on the back part of that schedule. Anything that's showing that they could have some critical issues, they're going to go right to that one. So, but it will happen, and we'll let you know when we get to it. I thought it was to show you this sanitary sewer collapse on Hen and Hayes that we had was very significant. And I think what it does is it illustrates that we have an issue with our aging infrastructure that we talk a lot about. But I think when people start to wonder, why are we replacing this? Why are we replacing that? When you get a chance to look at something like this, as this came in, thinking it had been fixed, it continued, had some things by the time they really got into it, and then looking at something that was this deep within the system, that far down, was and David, you can back me up. We were pretty fortunate because part of this runs directly under a house behind there. And when they actually got down to the pipe and got in there, very large sections that just weren't there anymore. And it took them a long time just to find somewhere to hook into, just to create that flow. But we had a whole night of it on a bypass circuit and everything like that. So it definitely illustrates the issue that we've got to continue to look at these things when it comes time to replacing roadways and other things that we do, because otherwise we don't find out about them until you have an issue that's actually this major. And an awful lot of man hours spent first getting to the thing. It was so deep, but then getting to be able to get the hookup so that the whole thing was connected again. So I thought it was a good illustration. If anybody has any questions for David on that was kind of shocking. That actually happened at our last commission meeting. He started getting the text and everything when we were all on Zoom that night. So
if I could add on to that for just a second, Matt.
Sure, go ahead.
We have not done Hayes Street yet. That's going to go out for bid. I'm going to try to get that out tomorrow. The cost of that project is actually going to go up based on what we found with that. That, like Matt has illustrated, if anybody has any questions, you want to see the map on it, that sewer actually runs through a yard, and there's a section of about a quarter of it that runs underneath of a house. At some point, I don't know, at some point in the far past, there was an addition done on a house, and they actually did the addition right over top of the sanitary sewer main. And at the time, that's where we thought the collapse was, because it sure looked like it. So we would have been in a worse position. So we looked at the sewer videos that we had on it, and we replaced the section that was in bad shape, but there's still quite a chunk of that that's pretty tough. So part of Hayes Street made the decision today, we're going to replace another 130 feet of that sanitary going out into that yard, because the section that we replaced was over 20 foot. There was a section where 5 feet of it literally was collapsed, disintegrated. There was nothing there when we excavated it. And so we had to go at least about 20 feet before we could find decent pipe to connect to. And when I say decent, it means it didn't fall apart just by looking at it. So we did a tie-in that will work, but the idea is that we're going to go further back. I'm going to place a manhole in the middle of that yard. So if I look at doing some type of a pipe lining in the future, that gives us a new point to start to connect, to try to look at lining underneath of that house before we have a real catastrophic incident with it. If you guys remember, folks remember a few years ago, we bought, probably it's been about 6 years ago now, 7 years ago, we bought a bypass pump. If you remember that, we budgeted for that. And in the last, it's paid for itself at least 5 different times just in the last 2 years, but it really did on this one, because that sewer was collapsed and it runs to that yard. If we wouldn't have had the ability to bypass that, we would have been in a bad position where we'd have backed several houses up. So it bought us time to find out where the problem was. We could bypass around this and actually bypass that whole neighborhood and go right through the backyards and go to the other manhole. And that rain event that happened the week before, when we had the 5 inches of rain, we actually used it over at the wastewater plant to be an additional pump into the 2 high-powered pumps that we have over in the wet wells. So we used it as a third pump in there just to keep that water from backing up significantly, and then having the plant actually go underwater. So that pump's more than paid for itself a couple times just with our oh no moments that we've had. But anybody has any questions or wants to see where that was or any pictures, we can definitely show them to you. But when that project goes out, we may see an increase in the budget amount, because I did add on sanitary sewer to that project.
Dave, I want to say thank you to you and your crew, because that is a friend, coworker of mine that called during the middle of the meeting.
Yep.
And she is fighting cancer, and you and your staff went above and beyond to help her to get that solved before she went to her chemo treatment. So thank you. Great job for all of you.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
How do you get underneath the pipe that's underneath the house when you're doing that? I mean, how will you be able to do that?
Well,
just pray that that's still in good shape.
There's a couple of different methods. If it's in decent shape, we could do, I say decent shape, if we've got a decent slope on it and the pipe, it can be salvaged. We could do a lining on it underneath of that house. We really don't have an option to, I'm looking at it, there'd be like a fifth option along down the road where we would actually have to shift it to the north and actually acquire a new easement to run it through and go between 2 houses, which is not ideal, because that, like those pictures show, and I was explaining to Matt when we had that problem, we're only about, and Michelle, if you know that house, if you're familiar with it, we were only about 20 feet from that house with our excavation, because the materials that we were encountering, if we get into water sand, we didn't want to risk losing that house foundation into the hole.
Right.
So it's tricky to go between the buildings. If the soil borers show that we could, maybe we would look at that option, but my first plan would be to line it. If not, we could look at maybe a pipe bursting to try to get the amount of flow into there that we may need. But there's a few different options to look at, but probably
So you're going to move it. You're going to move it is what
that would be one option. Or if we can just line what's in place, we would go that route to buy us, 10, 20 to 30 years. But based on the pipe that we saw, we're on very borrowed time.
Right.
And that's just one spot. There's a couple spots. There's some in the downtown where we have sanitary mains that run underneath under their buildings. A few of the commissioners have been on the board for the last several years. If you remember the big downtown project, we called it Stair Step. That was one project to replace some of those that were under those downtown buildings. There's still several of those that need to be looked at, and those won't be easy jobs, but.
Right. Well, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
there was
Dave,
a-
thank you for your team.
Another
And
picture. I'm
just a
sorry. go ahead.
question on when you do the Hay Street, are we leaving anything old under the street?
No,
Okay.
no, because of that program we've been doing for the last several years, we're fortunate enough to where this commission has made that decision to replace old sanitaries. So that's what we're doing. The storm, all intents and purposes, that will be all replaced. And the water main itself will be replaced. And that is a tight right of way in through there. And we're going in the sanitary that runs to the east off of that block. That one, we're going about 30 feet out. So when we have to replace that in the future, we don't have to undermine the existing road. We can go through those lots and do what we need to do to stay out of the road if we do anything in the future on those lines.
Okay. Any more questions?
Thanks, David.
Oh, Matt, do you have more?
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
Just touch on the DNR grant. Eric got notice maybe 2 weeks ago, right after our last meeting, that not to panic, with everything going on and trying to see where allocations are and money is and where it's going to be. It is there. They're just waiting for it to get to that point through the legislature and get it into law so we can get there. So they just ask patience as we're waiting for our money. So I want to make sure everybody just had an update on that's still part of the plan of where we're going. And then Eric and David and I actually were involved in the county meeting last Tuesday. The airport report was brought before the county board of commissioners. The meet and hunt study that was commissioned quite some time ago. And in a nutshell, the options are well, in a nutshell, actually the airport runs extremely well for what we pay for it. And a number of times the talk was about the city of Elma, of our commitment to it and how we've been able to maintain it at a level for the cost, the overall cost to everybody. But we're kind of at that point. We had some discussion about parks, some other things like that. We don't want the airport one to slip by us here. That the airport is not going to close. It became very apparent during the discussions from the report. That would be extremely costly to everyone, let alone we would ever even get approval to do it by the FAA. That their takeaways then are for another entity to take it over or to try to privatize. And the reality is, I think we're sitting at a point when the county decided to run this report, they were looking at it from a standpoint, is this something that should be a county facility? Just today, I set a meeting with the airport authority for July 9th. We're hoping we can be back to seeing each other at a meeting so that we can have a full discussion with the airport authorities perspective. But I think that it's been narrowed down quite a bit now, that there's a definite need for us to see somebody else being running the airport authority. And it's one of those issues that we've been talking about. And I think that will most likely be where we talk about from the position of the airport authority. I can't speak for everybody else, but I know my feeling is that we've had some other discussions that it's kind of apparent at this point in time.
Thank you, Matt. And I'm glad that it's plain that nobody wants to eliminate the airport. I don't think that was ever anyone's intention. But I think it's also very clear, and this report did a good job of exemplifying that the city of Elma has certainly been carrying a disproportionate share of the burden for the county for that airport. And whether somebody else manages it or if we continue to management and more people or more entities or the county just takes over the funding of said airport, because Eric and the authority, it's been managed very, very well and very, very efficiently. I think the report pretty clearly said that if anybody else takes it over, it's probably going to be more expensive to operate than the way Eric and the team has been doing it lately for the last number of years. So, I don't think anything's going to be more efficient than it has been, but the burden on the citizens of Elma does need to be relieved. So kudos to the county for stepping up and funding the report and trying to figure out what's going on and how to do it better. So thanks to everybody involved in that.
And I think we'll be able to, I feel pretty confident as I've talked with everybody else that July meeting will be one, and we'll get that out to everyone, will be one that is productive as far as the future and where we're looking. The good thing is it looks like everybody's on the same page. It was that idea of, can we close? I don't think there was ever any question about closing the airport. That wasn't anybody's intent, like you stated, Mayor, but the idea is really now we know that's not even a possibility. That could happen. We couldn't afford it, nor would the FAA probably allow it. So now we need to move forward.
Yeah, and it did make sense to look at all alternatives, whether that was a realistic alternative or not. Nobody knew until the report was completed. So kudos to everybody that worked on that.
Thank you on that. And then really the other thing, we had talked quite a bit about what could we do when restaurants reopened and bars reopened at the 50% capacity. What we've learned though is still their liquor license and some of their issues through liquor control, they still have restrictions. So you'll notice downtown, Eric did a really good job of getting out to all of the businesses around the restaurants and bars. And people have been really good stepping up to say they can utilize that space. So they are allowed to increase that capacity. But in reality, they can only still operate with their liquor license as there's stuff going through liquor control right now, which we may see some changes, but not in the next week or two. But to be able to still only function for their liquor license in those areas right directly in front of their business. So some of the other stuff we've talked about, I think if we see some changes in liquor, through liquor control of making some changes of how we can do things, that might get us to that next step of saying, what about a road? What about a different space where you could actually serve alcohol or drink in town? But until we see some of that liquor control, it's probably a moot point right now. And I think from Eric, your discussions with the business, the folks I've talked to, they're very happy with where they're at right now and getting a chance to see how this is going to work out.
Hey, Matt, are they allowed to have tables that they don't serve alcohol spread farther out, or does it just encompass the whole license with?
No, they can only serve alcohol in that front part. Anything beyond their own, though, they wouldn't be able to serve, but they can use the tables. And that's really where it worked out really well, because some of the businesses next door said, either we're not even open right now still, or it's after our hours anyway, by all means, put the tables out there. They just can't serve alcohol there.
Okay, but so like if a family came that wasn't there to drink and they were there to eat, they can still sit there and be served. Okay, that's
they could definitely go sit in that other. And the other option you may have is there can still be takeout, but it's where do you take it out if you're going to end up having a drink? And so that's where it could come back to us to say, are there some other areas that we would like to open up? But I think you're going to see some of that out of liquor control here within the next month. I think they're looking towards some of those things also. So, and I'm not sure if everybody got an email on a virtual update with Elma Spires that we're going to try and do a virtual update just to make sure we're checking in as to some of the things that were going on. And so, we had a trip planned to Holland to go and visit and bring a bunch of different folks who would be, but we never got to the point of sending the invites out because we're not going right now. That'll be a little later. So, but we'll keep you informed on that. So that's what I had just in my report. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Matt. Comment that I want to make, I've heard several very positive comments from merchants in downtown in particular, about the outreach from the city. Eric that contacted everyone, and the city's been very cooperative and very accommodating for anything they want to try. So glad to hear that. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, I guess we entertain a motion to accept those 3 reports that were pulled.
So moved.
Support.
We have motion support. Any additional comments or questions? Hearing none. Sarah, would you take the roll, please?
Thank you. Nick,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Audra,
yes.
Roger,
Yes.
Roxanne,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
Larry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that motion is carried as well. Thank you very much. Get back to my agenda here. Whoops. Lost my page. Here we go. Okay, so next up we have new business, which is consideration of the resolution to receive, as amended on the agenda, the Alma COVID-19 response and reopening plan. Looks like Matt's got it pulled up and ready to fire, so take her away, Matt. Or actually, should we have a motion first, probably? If we could get a motion and some support before the presentation?
Move to receive.
Support.
A motion support. Now, Matt, please. Don't hear you. Do other people hear Matt?
No.
Okay, nobody's hearing Matt.
There, am I back now?
You are.
Okay.
Welcome back.
You're back? Okay, I'm good. Yeah, they got
We
me.
also can't see your
Thanks,
report.
Sarah's running in here also to get me going, so. Get back to the year. This will all be posted tonight with the full plan. This is a synopsis here and just a PowerPoint, and if you've had a chance to look it through, it's an interesting time that we've had to go through here and trying to get ourselves back on track and going, and we're going to take a slow approach. I prepared a press release that will go out first thing in the morning also, just talking about that we had closed our doors way back on March 19th to everybody. We did start about 3 weeks ago, put a committee together here with Mark Williams, Dave Ringel, Kathy Phillips, and I about starting to talk about it. Things changed rather quickly when we suddenly had the order left faster. We were a week quicker than what we thought, but that's okay. We were already down a pretty good path. One of the things with the plan that's currently out here is we are looking at, this has as much to do also with our financial situation as it does in just staying safe. So that's kind of an element in here that I want to make sure that we know. And we're really looking at this in a couple aspects, and you've seen this before, because what I've just done is I've incorporated the COVID-19 MIOSHA health portion that we have to have for our employees into the entire plan. So that's all a piece of this. And so while the preservation of our social distancing in our facilities is critical, we also have to protect our employees. And so what I've done is I've taken that part of the plan that talks about, and I'm going to go through this rather quickly. If you have a question, just shout out and I'll stop if you have a question with it. But we have the education portion of what we need to know, talking about how it spreads. Everybody here has a flow chart that says how this has to be done and what you can do if you're sick and what you're feeling. What do you do if you're confirmed to have COVID, and how would we go through the processes here within the city? A question and answer portion for the employees. This is all due that we have to have in place within 2 weeks of us opening our building, but we'll have it done and out to everybody by tomorrow. And so they have a question: what if it's me? What if it's somebody I has symptoms that I work with? What if it's somebody that I live with? How do I return to work? All of the things that we've put in place so that everybody knows exactly how we're going to take care of things. One of the areas is the exposure control plan, which is, go ahead, I'm sorry. Anybody? Oh, maybe not. The exposure control plan is a part of the MIOSHA plan that we have to have also. And so when we're talking about the engineering controls that we've put in place, it's how do we isolate people from the hazard? I informed you before, we have the physical barriers that have already been built. They're up here in City Hall, in the library, and also in the police department. Transit Center already has a building that has where people are shut down in a different area, so we're in good shape there. Administrative controls are many of the things we've been doing since the beginning of this, looking at our flexible work hours, changing the way we do things. We're doing it right now by having Zoom conferences and things like that, as opposed to meeting face to face. Those things will continue that we do when we can. Practicing social distancing from the public and other employees when we're here. We've done things like one employee in a vehicle. If it can't be maintained, we need to be in a mask. If we've got folks out doing things from a city work standpoint in public places, they need to be masked. All of our signs, even though it's just us in here, we've got signage all over this building that tells you about social distancing. We have signs up talking about hygiene, making sure that people are washing their hands and doing the things. We're understanding face coverings and the purpose behind those. And we really haven't had very many people that are not employees in this building since this thing started. So from here on, you'll see that we'll have some things to do for people who come into the building. But we're well signed. We go through a process every morning. Everybody has a form to fill out, which came from the health department, which is this one, asking them if they have any symptoms, if they've been out of the country, if they've traveled by airplane, some different things like that. Plus, we were doing temperature checks that are written on this, and then it's turned into human resources. So, knock on wood, we've been very fortunate to this point when it comes to those. PPE equipment, we've been we are in a good position with all of our PPE, that we have people who it's available to and stuff that they can wear if needed in their different parts of their job, and we've been doing that. the real portion we're getting into now, as you talk about opening up this building, is looking at the idea of assuring some social distancing. We need to look at this in a couple ways, is that we've got to reduce the number of employees and visitors present within the area. And you're seeing a lot of things out there right now that say it's not necessarily surface related as much as we used to think, but there still could be airborne. So we've taken the approach that says we're going to look at it more from the airborne. And so we're going to reduce the number of the occupancy load for our employees who are in the building. And what I've given you here is just what we're looking at from the standpoint of anybody has any questions. This plan will be on our website. It will be in up there so that people can see who's working when, what our schedule is looking like, so they know how everybody's functioning through this period for all of them. And saying we've got different people working on work share programs that will be furloughed for 1 day, maybe 2 days a week. We've got folks that are still going to be teleworking from home. And we'll continue on some of our processes that we're going to do. Some water, wastewater, police, fire. They're 24/7 operations basically. So they are kind of still in their normal mode, so to speak, of how they would function. As you can see there. Now, as we talk to the facilities, and this is really what I was trying to get to, none of that stuff is any change in what we've been doing since the start, really, of the COVID crisis. When we start to talk about our facilities and looking at the municipal building, because we have a number of departments housed in this building, there is really a high probability for a number of people being in here at any given time. So what we're looking at is breaking this down, availability and access and things like that. So we're talking about the availability in an effort for us to both. Go ahead. Did I hear somebody? Nope, I'm sorry. I'm looking at two different screens right now. So in an effort to assist with the financial impact that we know that we're going to be facing here, that's not changing as we go through. We're going to close this building starting on this Friday. We're working 410s now, people in this building. And as you can see, if you go back through the personnel portion, you'll find out who's working there. That has an awful lot to do with the finances of trying to shut this building down. Got to 90 degrees today. Everything's pumping pretty good to do that. It also does give us the ability to stagger our people a little bit better, so we can limit the number of people here. Greg had brought up when I'd sent this to him, take a look at this, and we're going to look at a couple different dates too to extend the times out maybe a little bit. But the general service counter, we're still going to continue to focus with people to say, and I'll show you some online things tools we've put in place. Please continue to try to use the online tools to see us. Please continue to use the phone, call us, make appointments. We will make arrangements to meet you and do things, because we're still going to try and limit. This building isn't just going to wide open, come open again. And we're still going to limit the number of people who are coming in here. So at this point in time, we're looking to open the general service counter from 12:30 to 3:30 on the Monday through Thursday. That just means if you come, we will be available to you at the counter. If you come at a different time than that, we're still all here. We're still going to be available to you. We're just trying to limit that to see if we can't get a little better grasp on how many people are coming. We'll continue to encourage people to use the apps, the Zoom apps, and the telephone when possible. And if you have a meeting scheduled with somebody, it's going to be your responsibility as that person to go and meet them at the door, at the west door. So while we're all available in the building, the interior doors, we have two double doors at both the east end and west end of the building. We have a double set. The interior doors on both of those are going to be locked to the outside. And Aaron had referred to it a little bit earlier before the meeting started. We have we put a Zoom ring on there so that people can actually ring the bell when they're there. At that point in time, the west door, this will be starting on Monday the 15th. I'm sorry, I got a schedule coming in later, but the west door will be the entrance to this building. The other portion will be signed that it's the east door will be closed. You'll have to come around. So we're going to have the flow go through that way. So anybody who requires that they have to enter the municipal building shall be met at that west door by staff. And prior to their entrance, they're going to have their temperature checked by staff so that we make sure that people are not coming in here who are infected. What we're doing is instructing staff that when you talk about, if it's somebody just coming to pay a bill, somebody to do something else, what is your business that you're wanting to conduct? Because what we can do at that time is we'll utilize that vestibule on the west side that we've been utilizing since the start of this. If we can conduct the business right there without you having to broach all the way inside the building, we will do that. It'll be stocked, continue to be stocked with supplies and sanitary supplies for people so that they're able to wash their hands, do all the things that we need them to do there. But if you're going to broach that door and come into the building, anyone who can medically tolerate a face covering must wear one if they're going to come in to the building to conduct business, if they're going to come in further. And the same thing for staff. If staff's going to go out there to meet you and you're going to come into the building, staff will also then be wearing a mask at that point in time in order to meet people. Just to give you an idea, we're going to close the entrance on the west side. We'll have the precaution stuff up that tells them, here's the symptoms. If you have any of these, please don't enter the building. We'll be asking you that. You're going to have a temperature check before you come in here. Our hours that will be staffed here, that somebody is in here in the building. The reason we look for the Zoom ring is it's something we can move around so that it's always going to someone in the building. We're trying to get rid of the phone tree to a certain extent. We've also going to post our directory numbers outside on the door, and there'll be a direct line into us, not going through the phone tree. So that would help to get there. And then, of course, our ideas talking about social distancing and those signages would be there. So that will be this building. Transportation Center is already in a really good spot because of how they're set up. They already opened on the 8th of allowing people into their building, and they're using the basic 6-foot X on the floor because they already have their built-in area that can use that. And so they were able to get going a little bit quicker. The library has basically a 3-step plan that they're looking at that they'll go through. And this is following a lot of the things that Lori got through the library associations and different things. Plus it fits in really well with what's come out through the executive order. Is really starting to work with staff, limited hours from 8 to 5 as they get ready to go through this time. And they have masks and everything that they've been wearing, the people who are in there, their cleaning schedules. They do a really good job of cleaning up any area that they're in. As we move towards the next phase, we're going to start hopefully on the 15th, that it's going to be that curbside pickup that we were actually doing prior to they stopped us from doing that. They're going to go back to that kind of service and getting that done. But there's a schedule here for quarantine in the books as they come back in what they're doing. So we're anxious. Lori had people actually banging on her door on Monday when it came out that the libraries were allowed to open. She had people wondering why they weren't open yet. We had told you a couple weeks ago we were going to still take a week after we were allowed, to do it so that we could plan. And I think we've been able to do that still pretty well in getting there. The remote library services they'll still be doing. They're not putting necessarily dates on that. The library just recommends, library associations recommend, let's continue to look how things are going. Then the next phase will be, as we start to do a soft opening, only X amount of people in this building at a time, using the computers for a period of time, rotating people around so they're able to clean, able to do things. And then we're able to work with our cleaning staff at night to get some of the other areas moving on all the way up until the library is back open at full staff. The idea is to be open only until 5 p.m. at this point in time. A couple reasons. It helps us with the flow. It helps us to keep people coming at a certain thing at a certain timing, but it also lets us shut the library down. Same thing, Monday through Friday, and it will not be open on Saturdays during this time. Playgrounds is a real tough area, and there's really not a lot of guidance other than you don't have a lot of guidance. The reality is, if you're going to open your playgrounds, you open them. You don't give a play at your own risk type deal. You just say they're open, and we are still recommending the social distancing guidelines that are out there for playgrounds that say, please stay 6 feet away, use your hand sanitizer before and after, limit your interactive things. It's going to be difficult. The day that the order was lifted, I did get a phone call from a resident who called me that said, I was just wondering if you guys wanted some help. I'm here at down at Wright Park, and I'd be more than willing to help you take the tape down so that you didn't have to do that. And I was very appreciative, but I do have a volunteer now. Actually, I called her back. We talked as we're going through a lot of the things that we're, trimming, and some of the things that are taking us that we just aren't getting to with the reduced staffing that we have right now. She wants to lead a group that will help keep Wright Park trimmed up. And so I'm going to get with David. We're going to do some things and see what they can help us on. So we turn that into a positive. So hopefully that will happen. Schedule-wise, what we're looking at is going through this week, what we're doing right now. finalizing the plan, getting some input from you if there's something we need to change. Different departments will start. I sent it out to everybody today that says start to train with your people, make sure everybody's very cognizant of what we're doing in each building. Then on the 15th, we will start to make sure that people know that we've never not been here, but now we're here in a different manner. When can you come in without having an appointment? How do you have appointments? What are we looking at? Starting on the 15th. Then it will just be, we'll play it by ear as things change, as we're allowed more than 10 people, so that you guys know we will be doing a Zoom meeting for the second meeting in June. Even if there's some change around the 15th or that says that the governor's gonna have to make a decision if she's gonna extend how we can still have public meetings on Zoom, because in reality, as long as we can only have 10 people in an indoor meeting, there's 7 of you, me, Eric, that are always here, whoever's here, Sarah, there would be no public because we would already be at 10. And so the reality is do the Zoom meeting, because then people do have a way to get into the meeting. So that's what it's going to come through. Again, dates and times, the transit center already started on June 8th. They will be operating Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Their people are working 410s, but that allows Brett to stagger his staff a little bit in order to get that. Library, again, will be starting right now of what they've been doing, getting people back to work that haven't been there. Through this week, they're going through the same thing, but they have started some phone service available to people. They've been open from 8 to 5, but they're really gearing up for next week to be able to start this contactless curbside pickup, which was very, very popular. They've had a lot of calls and a lot of people already talking about it. So we're hoping to get back there. We're going to continue to really focus with our citizens to say there are ways you can do business with us without having to come into the office and do things. So I've asked all staff to give them, like I stated, our direct line numbers are now on the website. Our direct line numbers will be posted on the door. You don't go through a phone tree or an operator. If you call me, it's going to ring here in my office at that time. So we're trying to do that. And I've notified staff that we have to keep up with our voicemails, make sure we're clearing our voicemails, and make sure our messages are proper. We have seen a big increase in our billing information and pay bills online. When we get to the month of July, we will go back to, most likely at that point in time, we'll be collecting late fees and doing things again. And I'll be able to give you at the next meeting what that's cost us in not collecting some of those fees, because it's a little more substantial than you probably think. They can access property tax information, all that. They can register to vote. I've asked staff, anything else you can think, this is actually from the website, anything else you can think of, we will put on that front page of the website and try to get people.
Could I ask you a question, Matt?
Sure, go ahead, Greg.
You mentioned that you're posting the direct lines to all your departments or your people on the website as well as by the front door. Do we have a policy as far as returning emails and phone messages? Is staff instructed to return things within 24 hours, 48 hours? Do we have any kind of a plan for that to make sure we're responding as promptly as we possibly can? Typically in private industry,
that was the discussion we actually had. It was the idea that you have to, and we haven't put it in a policy, but that might not be a bad idea to say, because in reality, we if we're encouraging people not to come here and to do things, then we need to be responsive to them. And so I think that idea of making sure that we get back to them, for the most part, I think we do a very, very good job at that. I'm concerned that if we get an onrush of people, because we would like them to continue to do business this way. So that could be something we could look to do and make sure that we get into our policy manual, actually.
Yeah, and I know there's different ways to approach it. I know with my team at work, I always encourage everybody at least twice a day to, return emails or phone calls.
We've had talks in the past too about not being a slave to your email, so making sure that we are using times of day and some of the business talk that we've had. And so the other thing would be people know we're here at 7 a.m. It didn't take long that I already had 2 phone calls shortly after I got in this morning. So people will figure out when we're here. There's no doubt, and do that. So hopefully people will continue to do some of the things. We also have the drop box, but we're going to put a drive-through drop box over on the library, so people don't have to get out of their car. We're going to make it as easy as we can for folks to be able to do that, and then we'll manage getting things from there. I've been shocked at how full our drop box is every day. And I don't know if I told you, I decided to sanitize the mail the one day that I collected stuff out of the drop box and put it in the other room, and all of a sudden Eric yelled from his office because I think I about killed us. I didn't realize that the bleach was that strong. So we're still here. So that's kind of where we're at from there. I got to get out of this thing now. There we go. Thank you. I'll get back with you. Just looking at any input you may have, anything. We're just trying to be as thorough as we can. One of the hard things with something like this is you have a segment of society out there who's ready to move on and ready to say, I'm done with this. I'm ready to go back to life, and I don't want to not be able to come in whenever I want. You have some folks still who are very, very nervous about the future and about their health and about things. So the tact we decided to take was the tact that said, look, we have to make sure that we are being as safe as we can for the most people that we can. And so that's why we took the tact of not putting a bunch of X's out in our room here. We can control off that Zoom ring how many people are actually coming and waiting. They can wait outside. They can wait in the vestibule or in their car. And we can then control how many people are coming in and out.
Okay. Yeah, there is a capacity issue. I think there's guidelines for capacity of your buildings based on square footage. So it's good that you can control some of that to a certain extent.
I'd rather be able to dictate who's coming and going as opposed to going out and saying, you can't come in. There's too many people in here. And if you're reading some of the airborne stuff, some of the different things, there's so much information out there that the reality is we just decided, as opposed to just lining up a bunch of people by X's that we can't control, we'll do it that way. And I think it will work. And if we have to make some changes, we'll make those changes. We'll look at it.
Hence the reason that we're receiving the report and not approving it.
Thank you. Yes, for bringing that up, because I'd have to keep.
We want you to have that flexibility.
Decided to change something.
Yes. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Matt?
No, I think it sounds great. I think it's good. I mean, had to go to the UPS store in Mount Pleasant, and they had a sign in the door that said no more than 4 people in the building at a time. And so I was waiting outside, and then this guy just came shooting on through, headed on in. So I think that if you can start it out this way, I think that there's less contact, plus it's less irritation, perhaps. We'll see, but thank you.
I don't think it'll be a shock to anyone. The operations.
No.
Thanks,
Sure.
Matt. It sounds like it was really well thought out. So you got everybody covered. And, I think a lot of this is going to be what individuals are comfortable with. Even when we talk about the park, we're not going to be able to save all the kids, so at some point it has to become the parents' responsibility. If, they want to play on the equipment, they may have to take hand sanitizer with them or wipes or whatever. But I'm one of those people where I'm certainly over it, but I'm still too afraid to be in big public spaces, and I still don't really go to the store, unless it's an emergency. So, but I kind of feel like at this point now it's my responsibility to keep myself safe. And I think that's, I think you've thought of just about everything, but at some point too, it's got to be on, our patrons that are coming to the library or to the parks or, to the building. So good job on that document. It's a lot.
Thanks.
You got
Thank
it.
you.
A lot of work on that, Matt. A lot of work.
Thanks, Raj. One of the things that I think is important that I don't want people to miss, because I get it, it's June, and so we're going to work 4/10s, and this office is going to be closed on Friday. Trust me, this is only the second day, and I used to work 12-hour shifts in the police department. I'm tired after working 10s. It's a different thing, and I have had talk with a number of the staff that already work 10 or 11 hours a day to say, please, this doesn't give you the excuse to work 14. Don't do that. And we'll still have meetings on Friday. We'll still have to conduct some meetings that we will do by Zoom, and we'll still do that. And I know I'm going to get that out of staff. This was not intended to say we're going to have a 3-day weekend. The reality is we're going to shut these buildings down. We're going to commit to it for 3 months to see what that savings really can be. Because if we don't commit to it, we'll never get the savings. If we're going to do it a couple weeks, maybe we should try this again. So we want to see, and I believe we can. These buildings cost a lot of money to run. And that we can do that. It's different, and we do have the financial impact that we are dealing with. And so this isn't just about, it's about COVID, because it's why we're in the financial situation that we're trying to manage our way through. But it isn't about distancing necessarily why we're closed on Fridays. It really is about the financial impact and how can we use that. We have 9 people that will be on work share program, which they will be off either 8 hours or 16 hours a week that they're furloughed and being paid through unemployment. And so that just works well to say there's those 4 days the other day. So we don't have a mix of trying to get only some people in the office, some not. Now we're running a building, which we have been doing with no more than 5 of us in here most of the time. It's usually dark, except in our offices. All the other areas are dark, but running a building with only 3 of us in here isn't efficient either, especially through the hot months. So that was kind of the thought process too, that we would do the 4 temps. So.
Yes. The only other thing I wrote down as you were talking there, it didn't occur to me earlier, but you mentioned a reporting questionnaire that you're going to have staff turn into HR. And I'm just hoping that you've worked out a paperless process to fill out those reports and submit them to HR.
Can't. Mid-Michigan Health Department, it's actually a health department requirement that we have this form, and it's a 4-part question, and that it's not, thank you, Sarah, because we were leaving them for somebody to grab. That's a HIPAA issue. So they go directly to HR in there, and then we have to have the tracking information too as to who's been working on what day. So we have had those. So it is actually a paper system, Greg, that they just fill out when they come in, shoot themselves. When they get their temperature checked themselves, they write it down so that they're there. And then we have the documentation.
And it's required to be on paper?
Yeah, I have to do it at the school too. Or anybody that comes into the building, I fill it out so they're not touching it.
Yeah.
And I have to, well, I say probe them, but I'm taking their temperature.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody that comes in. So I say, if you don't want to be probed by me, you can stand outside and just hand me what you want. Don't come in. And I'm just as happy. So.
Yeah.
Matt,
It is a paper thing that came from the health department, Greg, for us to fill out.
Matt, what we received was an email with that form attached, and then every day we just fill it out and then send it back to our HR, and then they can save it, so it's paperless.
Yeah.
So yeah.
We are scanning it and disposing of it now on a daily basis, or every other day or every third day. I think we are scanning those and disposing of the paper now. And shredding it. So.
Okay, I would just encourage you to investigate some way to make it paperless, so you're not scanning paper, and it seems very inefficient to me. But anybody else have questions? Okay, hearing none. Thank you very much, Matt. Appreciate it. So we had a motion of support to receive this. We'll have a vote now. Sarah, if you would, please.
Michelle?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Michelle?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Audra?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Roxanne?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
And Nick?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion is carried, and we have received the report. Next on the list is appropriations. Was there anyone in favor of paying the bills? If so, would you please make a motion?
Move approval.
Support.
A motion support. Okay, is there any comments or questions on the appropriations to be made? Other than the dog, anybody else have comments? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. Sarah, if you would, please.
Audra?
Yes.
Roger?
Yes.
Roxanne?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
And Michelle?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Once again, the motion is carried. So next up, we'll move down to commissioner comments. And Roger, would you like to lead us off tonight?
I don't think I have anything to say that I haven't said before. The city continues to do just a marvelous job on getting us through some really, really crazy times. We're all going to learn some absolutely fantastic things out of this, but right now it still seems hard, but good job.
Very surreal. Okay, Nick, I've got you next on the list.
Really nothing to add. I think we're getting through this and need to just stick with it.
Okay, thank you. Michelle.
If the weather permits, tomorrow night, Keep Elma Beautiful is having a cleanup night. We're going to keep our social distancing, but we've had some volunteers already go downtown. So I just encourage the residents of Elma to pitch in and help, since we're down all our seasonal help this year. There's a lot of weeds that need to be pulled, and we can get you bags if needed. So thank you to those that have helped so far.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Audra.
Did you say Audra?
Oh, yes,
Okay,
sorry.
you kind of cut out on me. I think he said Audra.
Okay,
You
sorry.
kind of cut out. I mean, I think he said Audra. Quick question, Michelle, if anybody wants to volunteer, do they just meet downtown somewhere or just show up?
6 o'clock at the chamber office
Okay.
tomorrow night.
Okay.
And if it's raining tomorrow night, it'll be Thursday night.
Okay.
But some people didn't want to meet in the group, so they've just been heading out on their own and helping us clean up. So.
Okay, I had an employee that asked me about it today, and I told her I'd find out from you. So, okay, good deal. The only thing I would add is that some of our faith-based leaders in the community have organized a peaceful walk on Saturday night at 6 o'clock for the Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Not really a protest, but a peaceful get-together and a walk to show support. And that is at Wright Avenue Park from 6 to 8, I believe. So if anybody wants to get involved with that, I think it sounds like a nice thing to be involved in. And then just good job to the city. I know this has not been an easy time. Matt, great leadership, and all your staff is doing a wonderful job. I think that we'll get through this COVID stuff, but I do think, you mentioned the 410s. I wouldn't feel too bad about that. I think all businesses are looking at some new normals now. I know even at my agency, there's going to be some changes and realizing that we can do some things differently. And it's just going to be kind of a different time for everybody for a while. So yeah, thank you guys.
Okay, thank you, Audra. Roxanne.
Nothing to add, except as usual, great job, Matt and your team. I couldn't be more pleased with the way you're handling everything, and I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Well said. Larry Mott.
Nothing, thank you.
Okay. Sarah, would you like to have some words?
No, thank you. I'm all set.
Okay. And we're missing Tony, so it's Matt next.
The only thing I'd echo, one of the things we've tried to do with the reopening plan that we've been looking at is, and Roger, you mentioned it, Audrey, you mentioned it, we're trying to look at some things that say, yeah, we got to get through something, but is this a way we could change how we do business? Is it something that could actually sustain, that we could sustain? I think we've learned some things about working from home. Thank you, Aaron, for getting us all set up to be able to do things like that. It's about being productive. And so I think that we found some different ways and we do some things. And I think we have been able to work with our community a lot to understand the online portion of the world and some of the Dropbox stuff. So everything we're doing, we're trying to learn from it so we can use it later. So, and thank you for the support. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. And I certainly like to echo the comments that everybody else made. Great job for everybody. I can't say enough how impressed I am with how adaptive everyone has been through this whole ordeal, this continuing ordeal. From organizing these online meetings to the comments we're hearing from downtown merchants and citizens about the city being responsive and adaptive and willing to try new things, and they're not all working out. And as you would expect, everything doesn't work out. But everybody's trying new things, looking for new ways to do things. And I just was very impressed how flexible everybody's being and how well everybody's getting along and playing nicely. So thank you to everyone for that. And certainly, David, your crew, give them an extra special thanks for, digging that hole. That was a deep hole, and those things are very dangerous. So we appreciate what they do and that everybody's doing it safely. And hopefully that continues. We don't want to see anybody get hurt for that or any other reason. So with that, I would like to open up to the public. If there's any members of the public that would like to comment, please do something to catch our attention and we'll allow you to talk. Looks like David, Mr. Schaefer.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. My name is David Schaefer. I'm here today on behalf of two of the provisional medical marijuana licensees in the city, DVNK and Oak Flint LLC. We sent a letter in on behalf of my clients earlier today, which it was too late to get on the agenda for today, but I just wanted to flag it for the commission's attention. The issue really is concerning the deadline for getting certificates of occupancy. As I'm sure everyone remembers, my clients were granted provisional licenses back in May of 2019. And one of the conditions that the commission imposed on granting those provisional licenses was that you get certificates of occupancy and complete the other ordinance requirements within 1 year of that being granted. At that time, nobody expected the COVID-19 issue to come up. And once it started becoming a problem, both my clients sent letters to the commission requesting a 6-month extension at the end of March and early April. Luckily, Mr. Ripley acted quickly after the governor began locking things down and granted an extension unilaterally that was intended to terminate, I believe, once Executive Order 2020-21 expired. And then there were numerous reiterations of the orders through various rescissions and then reissuing of new orders. And so it started to become a little confusing as to exactly how long the extension was going to last for and when construction was going to be able to resume. My clients have a little bit of a concern because we've heard through our contractors that it sounds like perhaps the extension is going to be expiring at the end of June, which for us just simply isn't going to be enough time. I think the logic was that the governor allowed construction to resume on May 7th. And theoretically, that is what happened. But what we were told by our contractors and subcontractors is that because of the shutdown and impacts on the supply chain, they were immediately seeing issues with backlogs and work orders, inabilities to get supply, and inabilities to get people out on site. And so my clients are very concerned that we're not going to be able to have everything done by the end of June, even though we've started working on things again and been making progress. And this is something I think that can be addressed maybe more substantively at the next meeting so that the request can formally get on the agenda. But essentially, we're asking that the commission, since it has the discretion to do so under the city code and under its prior resolution, either grant their prior request for a 6-month extension from the original May 28th deadline, or provide another 90 days on top of the June 30 expiration date that we've been hearing about, just so that we can have a little more time to get it done. We're confident we can be open well before the end of the year. And we still think that that's the fastest way to get provisioning centers open in the city for the city so that everyone can begin to benefit. But June 30th just simply isn't going to be doable for us. And so I wanted to make sure the commission was aware of this, and hopefully we can have maybe a more substantive discussion at the next city commission meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Appreciate your comments, and I'm sure you'll be working with Eric and others on staff to bring it to our next meeting then.
Great, thank you, sir.
Yes, look forward to discussion. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to comment to the commission?
Greg, before we adjourn here, I'd like to just take a minute to say to Matt and Mark, I think especially, that in light of all of the things that we are hearing with the Black Lives Matter and the defund police departments and all of that kind of thing that is going around, I don't want constituents or other people that I'm talking to in the city of Alma to come up to me and say, what is the city of Alma doing about this? And my answer to be nothing, because there's nothing that we can do. I think there most certainly must be something that we can do. And I think we ought to kind of take a look at just seeing what we can do to show our sympathy toward. Nobody's really talking about defunding police departments, but there is talk of moving some funding around. And I think we really just need to look at that.
Okay, thank you, Roger. And Mark, did you want to comment, or Matt, did you have any comments?
I think that thanks for that, Roger. And I will tell you that I think that there is a time and place for us to become more involved. As you guys know, our department is currently undergoing a really, really rigorous evaluation of their policy and procedures through the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police. And to do those things, I think the appropriate time would be as we get some of those things in place to be able to show the community exactly how we operate. I think that the chief presented in a post. You all know my feeling about Facebook, so it's hard to say it on there. But I think she did a really good job of talking about the transparency within the department and how we function. and what they
She
do.
did. She did.
And I think you all know where I come from, so I have certain feelings that way also. And I think that she made some statements about what has occurred and where we go. And I don't ever want to construe that silence means that we don't believe that what happened was wrong, that we don't believe in the cause, that we don't believe that we have to be a part of things. One of the areas I've been talking with folks is it's interesting as we've changed in a lot of the things that we're hearing out there is really this comes down to, and I know it's not this simple. I'm not that naive. Believe me. We just need to start treating each other better, period. Across the board, respect each other and do things. And I think that we will continue to make sure that that's what's happening here and how we're doing our jobs and what we do. And so there isn't silence. If we're going to have this event that Audra was referring to on Saturday, I think that we need to show some things we need to do to be involved there. But we also don't want to step out of our lane, that some things that we don't quite understand because of our community, the way it is. We need to make sure that we're making good decisions on what we do. And I think the overwhelming things, we are very fortunate with the kind of department that we have and the kind of community that we have. And I've seen a lot of support in our community and people talking and doing that. So please don't take that the fact that everybody's not, I'm not a Facebook person to get on there and say my feelings in that sense. And so we will be there. And when the time is right, we will definitely do that. Thank you, Roger.
Okay. And the fact that we are simply looking at stuff, looking at our policies, there's the beginning of any kind of an answer right there.
Certainly. And, you know, I have my own biases as well, as most of us do, but certainly with a police officer in the family, you know, I have my own feelings, and I think we need to, you know, keep everybody in mind. We're fortunate in the community that we have. I think the police and the rest of us citizens get along fairly well. So a lot of little common sense and kindness to one another goes a long way towards that. So thanks to everyone for that. Last call for any other comments? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Support.
We have motion support. Sarah, would you please take the roll one final time?
Yes, thank you. Roger,
Yes.
Roxanne,
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
and Audra.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion is carried. We are adjourned. I thank everyone very much and look forward to talking to you again soon.